Dollar. Dirt and money, no soul. Had to go and get it, ain't no time to kick it. Got a stack of flip for my foes. Dollar. Please tell me you can hear me. Don't turn your back and don't neglect me. Just let me know if you need me. Dollar. Let me watch out for my partners. Keep my money long, get my team strong. Let me run away from my problems.
Yup, let's get original crew member back. Today, man, we got a round of crazy conspiracy theories that turned
out to be true.
Good job. You didn't even say the rest of it.
3.
Okay, bro. She already started wrong from the jump.
Okay.
Simmer down.
Hey.
What's some conspiracies you... What's a crazy conspiracy?
Hold
on, let me ask you this. Hold on. What's a crazy conspiracy that you have heard that turned out to be true?
I have no clue.
I can't speak on it.
I be like entertaining conspiracies and stuff sometimes, just depending on what it is. Some people be taking it a little too far, but
I can't think of
one off the top of my head.
I can't think of one like, everybody.
But I'm pretty sure once he said, I'm like, yeah, that's a good one.
All right. With that being said, before we get into it, make sure y'all check out the links in the description
down below. Keep going, baby.
You
keep
jumping the gun. What are you doing?
My bad. Just keep going.
In the description box.
It's down below.
You already know where to go. If you want the first part, you got to do it. Check out down below. Also, if you enjoyed today's visuals.
Look at it with a thumbs up.
But hey, man, let's go. Let's check it out. Let's see what it's about, man. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Let's get it.
Crazy conspiracy theories that turned out to be true. Project Hemisphere. If you're watching this video, you likely know what a wiretap is, right? Maybe you watched a movie about mafia bosses or drug lords and the police are trying to get information on them and they tap their phone. That's a real thing, and in those situations, that's a useful tool. But what if I told you the American government actually had a partnership with the third largest cell provider in all of the United States to track all of their customers' data? Well, hopefully you'd believe me, because it's true, and it's called Project Hemisphere. In 2007, the Office of National Drug Control Policy, the ONDCP, started a partnership with the cell phone provider AT&T, the third largest cell provider in the entire United States. And this partnership was for profit, meaning that the US government...
Who the first? Verizon?
Probably Verizon.
Can't be.
I'm pretty sure Verizon probably.
I would hate it working for them. I'm just top.
It's probably Verizon, maybe T-Mobile and AT&T.
But you telling me me?
T-Mobile, yep, T-Mobile and AT&T.
T-Mobile is...
Yeah, T-Mobile, just because it doesn't work too good in this
area.
Well,
I'm going to say this. Also, you got to realize T-Mobile bought out Sprint.
Okay,
so
there
Sprint
you go.
Customers... Which one was trying to merge with AT&T first? I think it was T-Mobile trying to merge with AT&T. And then they told them, you can't do it. And then T-Mobile and Sprint ended up merging.
I used to have Sprint. It worked.
Still stopped.
Because
Sprint was the worst.
It was very spotty because it just didn't work well, in the area I was in at the time.
AT&T was some bullshit. That's the reason why they done fell off. Verizon, I used to work for them. Be with the bullshit too.
Everybody,
they overpriced for.
How you good? How you bad?
Like they overpriced for no reason. You know that.
What, Verizon?
Yes.
Oh, I don't know. I don't have Verizon.
I used to go be all in y'all accounts. Be like, God damn, look at all these money. Bro, I done seen some stuff working there, bro.
I seen like the charges and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They hit you for real, man, and they go get their money. And they don't cut off your services to you like up in 1,000, but they ain't got nothing to do with this. Look up.
Government was not only gaining access to all of AT&T's data, which we'll get into exactly what that contains, but they are literally selling the information directly to the United States government. But this isn't just a high-level operation. Sheriff's offices and police departments across all of the United States each individually pay anywhere from $1 million per year plus to maintain access to all of AT&T's records. And they're paying this much because obviously this information is valuable to the authorities. But there's a lot of questions. How long has this been going on? What do they use this information for? What information do they get access to? And is this legal? And did anybody even agree to this? Let me answer all of those questions in that order. Project Hemisphere as a project dates back all the way back until 1987, with the US government using other methods to collect data based off of telephone conversations, likely partnering with other landline and communication companies of...
I remember Bell South.
You still got Bell South.
Oh.
AT&T.
I was like, I know.
Like the Batman building, it used to be Bell. I swear, I feel like it used to be Bell South back in the day.
I was like, I remember it from somewhere.
And then now it's the AT&T building.
Oh, okay. I guess that's what.
Time. And while AT&T only became part of Project Hemisphere during 2007 and was exposed in 2013, there is absolutely no information pointing towards AT&T ending or planning on ending this partnership anytime soon, if at all. After Project Hemisphere was widely exposed, there was a leaked document that showed exactly how sneaky AT&T was. And the contract between the government agency buying the data and AT&T goes as follows. The government agency agrees not to use the data as evidence in any judicial or administrative proceedings unless there is
that's a lot, because they still use y'all information.
No other available and admissible probative evidence. The government agency shall make every effort to ensure the information provided by the contractor is non-attributable to AT&T if the data is provided to a third party. That is a direct quote, and also just a small snippet of part of the contract between these government agencies and AT&T. And what it basically says is, you didn't buy this from us, and you don't even know where this came from. They essentially wanted to separate the AT&T brand as much as possible from the data that they were selling to the government. And while Project Hemisphere is still technically, officially secret, all information used in court filings, case reports, and other documents involving Project Hemisphere are cited as information obtained from an AT&T subpoena, which on paper made it look like the government forced AT&T to give up the data on this one specific situation, but in reality, they were paying for it all along. And AT&T was more than willing to not only give access to their data, but to sell everybody's data to any government agency that was willing to pay. Now, what exactly did the government want to use this data for? In 2013, after Project Hemisphere was officially exposed, different law enforcement agencies made it seem like they were only using this to specifically find people that were involved in high-level drug-related activities. But through some of the available information during the initial expose in 2013, it was proven that they were also looking into other non-drug related crimes, such as bomb threats, impersonating military generals, organized crime, and other crimes of the sort. But they were all crime related. Now the question remains, what do they even have access to? What data is AT&T collecting, storing, and selling? And the simple answer is everything, always, and forever. The longer answer is AT&T specifically collects and stores metadata related to every single call that happens on any part of their infrastructure. And this metadata includes the phone numbers that called each other, who these people are, the date of these phone calls, the length of these phone calls, when these phone calls took place, where these people were when they took place of these phone calls, text messages, voicemails, and anything else that AT&T has access to, they are collecting, storing, and selling to the U.S. government.
You said what?
Ain't got no privacy.
Duh, you live in America.
I know.
I don't know why do people think they got privacy in America.
I didn't think I had it. I'm just like, dang, you just don't put it in my face like that. I knew it was a thing,
but it's like, damn, bitch. Why you stalking me? Like, damn, get up off my bumper.
You know, like, stuff. Yeah. You know stuff, but then when somebody put it out, lay it all out. It's like, dang. Like,
get up off my bumper. Hey, that used to be a saying back in the day.
And I guess the final question is this even legal? And that's where we are today. As I mentioned, this project is still technically officially secret, although at this point, it's not a secret at all. And with this information being known and well exposed and relatively well discussed, there is significant legal and privacy concerns surrounding this entire operation. But nothing is formally being done. And I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know if this is legal or not. But even if it's not, it's going to take a lot of force to make anything change. In November of 2023, U.S. Senator Ronald Lee Wyden addressed the U.S. General Attorney Merrick Garland and called for the release of additional information regarding Project Hemisphere. And in this letter from this U.S. Senator, he expressed his massive concern for the legality of this operation that was currently ongoing, and how they were able to conduct such extensive searches of domestic phone records without any need for a warrant. Which is true. Like I said, if you are using AT&T right now, any government agency that is currently paying for access to the database can access anything you've ever done on the AT&T ecosystem. Calls, texts, voicemails, anything. And as of the legality, people are definitely curious and concerned, but nothing's being done as of yet. So this conspiracy is still ongoing and developing, so maybe in a future episode I'll follow up.
Why you keep
spying on me for? I ain't did nothing.
Reason why it's so funny, y'all, we got AT&T. That's why she said that's why I ain't want that motherfucker.
So I ain't even want it. I was forced into it.
You what?
Yes, I was.
You know you want. It's all good. Shit, I ain't finna pay double the price just to be with Verizon. Cause the service we got, trust me, double the price at Verizon. It's not worth it, bro.
Now I don't be doing none, child.
That's what I was about to say. If you ain't doing shit, you ain't got nothing to worry about.
Then what if I decide that I want to start doing something?
Well, not to get AT&T. Get your AT&T phone. Get a burner. And don't get an AT&T burner. They got Verizon burners.
Have to be real low key. Give me a little.
I think in this day and age, it's
who Boost Mobile with?
All on subsidiary of
That's what I'm saying. Who is
straight talk? Because people like, I got straight talk. You owe somebody straight talk on Verizon though, right?
Yeah, but I think you could do it with AT&T because my sister be doing hers through.
Let me see.
My sister be doing hers through AT&T.
That's it straight.
Shit, you could do it through anyone. Like if it's like a unlocked phone, you could do it through anyone. T-Mobile, Verizon, AT&T. My sister like to do hers through AT&T.
See, I don't know the other ones though.
Yeah.
I know you got like Mint Mobile. They don't own towers, but they lease towers. So you bouncing on other, but like Verizon got Verizon prepaid, and people used to call in and be like, I got Verizon prepaid. I'm like, I can't help you with your service. You gotta call prepaid service.
I think in this day and age, it's pretty well assumed that the government has access to any piece of information they could possibly ever want or need. And even if they don't have direct access to it, they could get it relatively quickly. And Project Hemisphere is just proof of that. And for some people, this may not seem shocking at all. Although in 2013, when this was first exposed, I'm sure this was a rather alarming revelation. And on top of that, to discover that this has been going on since 1987 is definitely enough to make you raise an eyebrow. Of course, you could say, why worry if you have nothing to hide? But at the same token, there is definitely a violation of privacy happening here. Like, if the government subpoenaed AT&T about a specific court case that is actively ongoing, that's one thing, and that's a different conversation. But any government agency or police unit being able to pay to have access to essentially everybody's phone records is an entirely different situation. Right. If nothing else, it's interesting to think about. Because if you are an American taxpayer and also a customer of AT&T, you are essentially paying for the people who are spying on you to spy on you by providing them your information that you pay for. It's kind of like hiring a private investigator and being like, hey, I'm going to pay you to follow me around, and also here's a tracking device that I'm just going to put in my pocket. Use it to track me at any time, and I'm going to pay for all of this. But with that being said, this is only the first entry on this list. So let's keep going. Operation Snow White. The Church of Scientology is likely the most famous cult in all of human history. They've got a massive headquarters in Los Angeles, not to mention their alleged 11,000 locations.
If you haven't watched our Scientology video that we just did, I think I posted I don't know when it's coming out. Go check that out. We still got to do the Tom Cruise joint.
We don't have to, but
we still got to do the Tom Cruise joint. I don't know when we're gonna do it.
I mean,
if it's a slow day, we need some content. Yeah, I don't mind because it's long.
Worldwide, a very wealthy, powerful, and influential member base, and likely one of the most controversial rises and existences in modern day religion. In modern times, the Church of Scientology is known for being that place that Tom Cruise goes to and for helping skateboard YouTubers ruin their career. But did you also know that in the 1970s, the Church of Scientology carried out the largest infiltration of the US government in all of American history? Well, they did, and they did it successfully. But let me give a bit of background. The Church of Scientology was founded in 1952 by L. Ron Hubbard, a man who had just published a successful book and then lost the rights to it after a bankruptcy. Obviously, if you're an author who just had a wildly successful book and then somehow fumbled it all, of course you don't write another book, you start a religion. And in 1957, Scientology was granted tax exemption by the IRS because the IRS had officially recognized Scientology as a church. But a decade later, in 1967, the IRS decided that that wasn't true anymore, and that the Church of Scientology wasn't actually a church. It was a lot of things, and primarily acted as a business, and for that reason, needed to pay taxes. And this made L. Ron very upset. Losing their tax-exempt status wasn't the only interaction that Scientology had with the government, but it was definitely the most alarming to L. Ron Hubbard. Around this time as well, the FBI was also periodically checking in on Scientology just to see what they were up to. And in 1963, they were even raided by the Food and Drug Administration. Now, obviously, if the government is telling you that what you're doing is not what a church is supposed to be doing, and that you're being investigated and literally raided by multiple different government agencies, obviously you're going to make the necessary changes to maintain your tax-exempt status and act more accordingly to how a religious nonprofit should act, right? Well, of course not. And Scientology's rebuttal to the government making them pay pay taxes again was Operation Snow White. In 1966, a year before Scientology officially lost their tax-exempt status, L. Ron Hubbard had officially organized the Guardian's Office, which was a subgroup within Scientology that was specifically meant to carry out Operation Snow White. Now, the natural next question is, what is Operation Snow White? And bluntly put, it was Scientology's effort to remove any negative documentation about Scientology within the US government. Any document, any file, any report, anything within the US government that mentioned anything about Scientology that was even remotely negative, keep in mind, not even false, just remotely negative, was a target of Operation Snow White. And the goal was to have these files, documents, or reports stolen, destroyed, or at the very least, removed. And while this was happening officially in 1966, as early as 1960, L. Ron Hubbard was beginning to encourage members to take up jobs at the government, specifically as secretaries or bodyguards or janitors, any job that could get a member of Scientology within the United States government. Obviously, to exploit that power, but we'll get into that. Before Scientology was able to implant their own members into the United States government, they had to work with people that were already there. And that's where Michael Meisner and Gerald Wolfe come in. In 1973, both of these men worked for the IRS as typists, and they specifically worked in the Department of Religious Tax Exemption, a perfect connection for Scientology. These men were infiltrated by Scientology and began making illegal copies to provide to Scientology to provide them with more information and context about how the system worked. But this quickly led to forgery and literal breaking and entering within the United States government offices. This relationship had been going on for years, and the infiltration of the United States government by the Church of Scientology was growing. And because of this, L. Ron Hubbard and Scientology as a whole was getting concerned that their in at the government could potentially turn on them. And because of this, the Church of Scientology kidnapped Michael Meisner and kept him in captivity, where he was literally imprisoned by the Church of Scientology to ensure that he would not rat on the Church of Scientology and spill the beans about Operation Snow White. After 3 months of captivity, Meisner was able to escape the Church of Scientology, contact the FBI, turn himself in, and tell them everything. And this breakthrough was catastrophic for the Church of Scientology, as it led to the biggest FBI raid in all of United States history, with 156 FBI agents raiding the Los Angeles Scientology office. And during this raid, they found everything that they were looking for. Stolen documents, forged documents, fake passports, fake IDs, fake FBI IDs, fake security badges, lock-picking tools, wiretaps, plans, internal documents, basically everything they needed to prove not only the existence, but the step-by-step plan and execution of Operation Snow White. One of the most insane findings about this entire raid was the fact that at its peak, Operation Snow White had likely up to 5,000 undercover agents infiltrating the United States government in one way, shape, or form. They were in or had access to at least 136 organizations within the United States government, including the IRS, the DEA, the Coast Guard, and so on, and had installed wiretaps and stolen documents from essentially every person working within the United States government that had anything to do with Scientology or tax exemption. The sheer depth that Scientology was able to penetrate within the United States government is insane. And it wasn't just the United States government that they were able to penetrate. These 5,000 spies that they had were across the globe, working within the government agencies across the globe as well to maintain their tax-free status and, most importantly, their good name in numerous countries around the world. In 1979, when Operation Snow White was fully exposed and fully ended, L. Ron Hubbard's wife and 10 other Scientologists were sentenced to 5 years in prison, which to me seems light considering the complexity of the situation, but that's irrelevant. And L. Ron Hubbard himself was actually never formally charged and spent the rest of his life after Operation Snow White in hiding. Operation Snow White is definitely interesting, and I think the only operation I've touched on so far that involves a private organization conducting a covert operation on the government. But yeah, the Church of Scientology really didn't want to pay taxes. And they didn't want to pay taxes so much that they were willing to essentially infiltrate the United States government to make sure that that didn't happen. And for a long time, they did so successfully. And as crazy as that is, we still have more to cover. The Zimmermann telegram.
How did they get back, like...
Because that was, in the last video we did, they said they're not... Unless he didn't do his thorough research all the way. And he just, like, you know...
The other video.
Yeah, the other video.
Yeah.
Unless he didn't do all his research, you know...
But they're still running, still to the...
But what I'm saying is the tax exempt part.
Yeah, I know what you're saying,
but I'm saying
since...
So you thinking... So, I guess you're saying, trying to say... Like, how is they able to continue to operate?
Yeah, with just everything that happened. Also, with him, with the actual head dude going into hiding. Well, them getting time. And then going into hiding and stuff like that. Who picked it? I can't remember because I feel like in the other video he didn't mention.
So, the head dude, he never went to jail. So, he was still able to operate the religion. He has now passed. And the other guy has taken over now.
Okay.
So it's still operating. They still got a leader.
It's just a lot.
What you said.
There's no doubt that in modern times, the United States and Mexican border definitely have some tension. And the history of this tension goes back all the way into the 1800s, when Mexico lost a significant amount of land to the United States, specifically Texas, Arizona, and New Mexico, which Mexico had lost to the United States in the Mexican-American War from 1846 to 1848. Following that war, Mexican and American tensions were understandably at an all-time high, and these tensions from the mid-1800s bled into the early 1900s. And it was during the early 1900s when an opportunistic Germany had an idea. In 1917, Arthur Zimmermann, the German foreign minister, sent a secret diplomatic message directly to the German ambassador in Mexico and the Mexican president. And this secret telegram was short, concise, and if left unfound, would have changed the course of history forever. And I'll explain what I mean by if left unfound. But the telegram went as follows. We make Mexico a proposal of alliance on the following basis. We make war together, we make peace together. And the telegram included some more information, but this was the most significant sentence in the entire telegram. Previous to this telegram being sent, German officials had been spending time in Mexico, building a relationship and bonding with Mexico over their disdain and distrust for America. In Germany's eyes, this gave the two countries not only something in common, but also a common enemy. And even if Mexico didn't really trust or like Germany, Germany at least knew that Mexico didn't trust or like the United States, and they could use that. Hence, this proposal. The proposal specifically wanted Mexico to invade the United States. Obviously, Germany would be joining and supporting them in this invasion, and through this invasion, Germany promised Mexico that if they were successful, Germany would give Mexico all of their lost land back. Texas, Arizona, and New Mexico would all be Mexican land again if they were willing to help Germany invade United States soil. Now, Germany didn't necessarily want to just take over the United States, but they did want to distract them, because World War I was brewing in Europe, and the last thing that Germany wanted was America getting involved on European soil. They had enough to deal with. So they figured if Mexico could distract America, Germany could focus on Europe. However, there's a reason why this never happened, and it's not because Mexico didn't want to. Truthfully, we don't know whether they wanted to or not, because they never got the opportunity to execute on this plan. This specific telegram that was sent from Germany to Mexico was intercepted by British intelligence, as they had been monitoring all of Germany's communications for this specific reason. And at first, it was reported that the British government didn't exactly know what to do about this information, because although they wanted to inform the United States about this plan as soon as possible, they also didn't want to give up too early the fact that they were spying on the German communications, because that would obviously cut off their supply of communication and lessen their intelligence, which obviously was not strategic. And after only a few weeks of planning a methodical way of releasing this information without giving up their secrets, the cat was out of the bag. And in February of 1917, the United States public was made aware of the Zimmermann telegraph. This information changed the course of history, because during this time, the American people had largely supported neutrality within this war. But once it was abundantly clear that America was a direct target of Germany, the American people definitely saw the situation over in Europe much differently. And with growing public pressure from the telegram being leaked and Germany continuing to use unrestricted submarine warfare, the president at the time, Woodrow Wilson, decided to declare war on Germany in April of 1917, officially getting the United States involved in World War I. So yeah, the Zimmermann telegram is a crazy story for multiple reasons. Firstly, because Germany just had such a devious plan to attack and distract the United States using Mexico as a proxy, and also the fact that one telegram being intercepted by British intelligence literally changed the course of history by preventing this attack and also getting the United States involved in World War I. And it's also a bit ironic too, because the entire reason for the Zimmermann telegram was to keep the United States out of World War I happening over in Europe. And because of this interception and this proposed attack directly on the United States, it backfired on Germany completely and got the United States directly involved in the war. To me, this is such an interesting piece of history, and it was something I knew nothing about in regards to World War I. And for that reason, I knew I had to add it to this list. But if you can believe it, we've still got more ground to cover. So let's keep moving. The US government helping Saddam Hussein. When you hear the name Saddam Hussein, the first thing you probably think is public enemy of the United States, not necessarily ally of the United States. However, both of those statements are technically true, depending on the time frame. During the 1990s and 2000s, there is no doubt that Saddam Hussein was an enemy and a target of the United States government. And there's a lot of reasons for that. But did you know that before he became such this large public enemy, the US government was actually directly supporting Saddam Hussein during the Iran-Iraq war from 1980 to 1988? To be very clear, they weren't necessarily on good terms, but it was definitely a situation of an enemy of my enemy is my friend. During the late 70s and early 80s, the US government viewed Saddam's regime as beneficial pushback to Iran's growing influence after the 1979 Iranian Revolution, which literally overthrew the US-backed Shah and replaced him with an anti-American Islamic government. Once again, we're talking about another situation where a government is taking advantage of another country's political unease. Iran and Iraq were at war, and the US was definitely not happy with Iran because they had literally just had their US-backed government overthrown by an anti-American government, and for that reason, US was rather keen to help Iraq defeat Iran, even if they weren't necessarily friends. One of the biggest aids provided to Iraq by the United States government was satellite imagery. The United States had satellite imagery of Iran's military building up specific military bases that were near and likely to invade vulnerable or unprotected parts of Iraq. But the US government didn't only just provide Iraq with military intelligence and satellite images. They also provided weapons and materials that were used to develop chemical weapons. Chemical weapons that Saddam used against Iranian troops and even civilians. Now, a different conspiracy with
What the bruh? That's crazy. Like, I know that we ain't talk much about the Germany thing. Like, that's, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Without me having to say it. But this right here, it's crazy, bro.
Within this conspiracy was whether or not the American government knew that Iraq was using the materials provided by the United States government to create chemical weapons. That was until declassified documents revealed that the US government were well aware that Iraq was committing war crimes via the materials they were providing them, but decided that they were just going to ignore the war crimes because Saddam at this point was being a useful ally by attacking and fighting Iran. But everything began to change in 1990 after the Iran-Iraq war. Because in 1990, Saddam Hussein decided to invade Kuwait, which directly threatened the US, specifically through their oil interests that they had in the Persian Gulf at the time. This attack almost instantly made the US government shift its stance on Iraq and Saddam Hussein, and they began to label him a dictator who needed to be removed. And a year later, in 1991, the Gulf War began. And in 2003, after a decade of sanctions, the US invaded Iraq and executed Saddam Hussein. And just goes to show that just because you and someone else have a common enemy doesn't necessarily mean that you guys are on the same page. And the same weapons that the US government provided to Iraq to fight Iran were also used to fight Kuwait, which directly negatively impacted the US government. And obviously, in this situation, the US was fine with war crimes as long as you're on their side. But if you're gonna mess up their oil connections, you're gonna have a serious problem. For some of my older viewers, this may or may not be news to you. However, for a majority of my younger following, or for people who didn't have the full story about this entire conflict, I thought that this tidbit about America helping Saddam Hussein was definitely an interesting piece of American history. And yet, we're still not done yet. Before we get to the last entry in this list, I just need to say, if you guys are enjoying the series about crazy conspiracy theories that...
Oh, my bad.
What
I knew the second part.
What part?
With the Kuwait. Like, I knew, like, that part.
Did?
Yeah, I just didn't know, like, I guess the first part, as far as them, like, the weapons. Even if I did, like, know it, I forgot it.
Like, this kind of... different. Never mind.
Yeah.
But it honestly...
I knew it, but I didn't...
Like, because you know they always say that enemy of my enemy is my friend. I'm like, not necessarily, because y'all don't have a true connection. No. You know what I'm saying? So it was... Because
at any given moment...
It was, as long as you handle my lightweight, I'm fucking with you. But as soon as you start fucking with some stuff I want interest in, now we got a problem.
Now we got a problem. Now you back my enemy.
Well, Iraq was never there.
Okay, well, you my enemy.
Now you my enemy.
I wasn't even talking about this. I was just talking about...
Oh, yeah.
Like, I wasn't talking about this. I thought we was on something else. But yeah. But no, I partially knew. And I probably knew it all, but I just forgot. Brain a little, you know.
The last entry in this list, I just need to say, if you guys are enjoying the series about crazy conspiracy theories that turned out to be true, please leave a like or leave a comment letting me know that you want me to continue this series. Ironically, some of your guys' favorite videos are some of YouTube's least favorites, specifically the conspiracy and drug series. However, I will continue to make them as long as you guys continue to support and want them. My ultimate goal is to give you guys exactly what you want. And as long as I know that you guys want this content, I'll continue to make it for you. Your guys' support really means a lot, and I take your feedback seriously. But with that being said, let's get to the final entry on this list. Walt Disney working for the FBI. Walt Disney is one of the most famous people of all time.
Hell no, I met his cousin, but nah, I ain't I'm gonna tell everybody every chance I get, yeah, I met the cousin. Because it was so weird because I never seen anybody with the last name Disney.
Yeah.
And he came in, I was like, Disney? I said, I'm gonna ask him. I said, it was like I slid in there awkwardly. I was like, you came to Walt? He was like, yeah. I was like, for real? He was like, yeah, but it's more down the line. Like, you know what I'm saying? He said, I wish I was a closer kin so I can actually get. I was like, ain't this about a, how many people walking around here in the world last name
Disney? I've never met anyone.
This white guy. I said, you gotta be related.
And there is a ton of conspiracies surrounding Walt Disney. And I think we've even discussed the whole him freezing his body thing in a different video. But this true conspiracy actually has nothing to do with that, and has everything to do with his involvement with the FBI, which to this day still is one of the more secret and ominous things about his personal life. When discussing the thoughts, opinions, or beliefs of Walt Disney, there's a lot to bring up, and a lot of assumption and skepticism. But one thing that was absolutely confirmed was Walt Disney's absolute disdain for communism and anything that was anti-capitalist. Coincidentally, during this time, the US government had the exact same thought, and this was prompted by the Red Scare, which was essentially the government's fear of communist ideals or beliefs or influence gaining popularity or taking place on American soil. And because Walt Disney and the United States government were both on the same page and both extremely powerful, in the 1950s, they decided to form a partnership. Walt Disney specifically acted as a confidential informant for the FBI, and his role was interesting to say the least. Now I have to make a distinction here because this video is conspiracy theories that turned out to be true. So I kind of have to separate fact versus, well, still conspiracy based off of information that are not yet proven yet. So let me quickly give you everything that is certifiably true right now. There is a declassified FBI document known simply as Walt Disney's name, Walter Elias Disney. And this document contains over 570 pages of information, including Walt Disney's connection to the FBI. However, most of this information is either redacted or still classified. What wasn't redacted and is currently confirmed is the following. Walt Disney granted the FBI to use the Walt Disney parks however they pleased for whatever reason they may want. And in the same agreement, the FBI offered Walt Disney to use FBI offices for whatever he may need. Not with the same unrestricted access, but there was access involved. One of the proposed uses was allowing Walt Disney to film the Mickey Mouse Clubhouse within the FBI offices, which to me seems strange because if you have Disneyland, you likely have the capability to film some sort of soundstage or film studio. But regardless, if you wanted to film within FBI offices, I suppose that's your right. In October of 1947, Walt Disney did testify in front of the House Un-American Activity Committee, a committee that specifically investigated communist happenings on American soil at the time. Obviously, about communistic concerns he had observed. I mention this because this is a documented fact and also gives more weight to what I'm about to discuss, which leads into the realm of uncertainty and possible conspiracy. So stepping out of the facts, it is claimed that from 1940 all the way up until 1966, at the year of his death, Walt Disney was directly involved with the FBI, which was confirmed that he was at least somewhat involved as an informant. But it is also believed that Walt Disney was specifically using his connection and authority within Hollywood to essentially report on individuals in Hollywood who were suspected of having either communist ties, beliefs, or had ideals that they were looking to influence or share with others, typically through media. In our last video too, we talked about how at this same time, during the second Red Scare, the US government was also publicly discrediting people that were outspoken about their communistic views, with the government aiming to discredit these people so people wouldn't believe them and start to also agree with communism. That operation was known as COINTELPRO, and I actually talked about it in my last video. So this one is kind of debatable because I'm talking about a lot of things that actually aren't proven true, but I think the story is worth mentioning, and there is obviously truth that is currently publicly available, and I think it sparks an interesting conversation. At the very least, provably, Walt Disney was involved with the FBI, and depending on who you talk to, there's a whole slew of other thoughts of what else was going on there. But I think the story definitely holds a bit of weight considering the time where this took place and what the government was actively doing at this time with COINTELPRO. So, like I said, because this is a video about true conspiracies, let's just say that the conspiracy was that Walt Disney let the FBI use his parks. And in that case, that's a completely true conspiracy, and Walt Disney did give the FBI access to use the park however they saw fit, if they absolutely needed to. But everything else I did mention, as I'm clearly outlining once again, is still kind of up in the air. But I thought it was worth mentioning because it added a lot of interesting detail to the situation. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And with that, if you guys enjoyed this video, check out the last video I made about the craziest conspiracy theories that turned out to be true. It's on.
That's just, so he a whole snitch out here. A whole rat ass rat. You get it? She ain't get it, y'all. She ain't get it. He a whole rat ass rat.
Because of like
I'm just saying.
Well, a mouse and
It's still
a rat is.
It's still the same category. You're a mouse, you're a rat. It's still the same category.
But yeah, I got it when you said it, but then my brain went somewhere else. But anyway. But yeah. Child. See, that's why you can't trust folks.
Can't at all, man. Can't at all, man. Y'all spam us up in the comments, man. Let us know y'all thoughts about it for us in the comment section down below. But until next time, y'all know how it go, man. I do go by the name DJ the Kid. This is
Sierra Nicole.
We are.
Kid and C.
We out.
Go and get it, ain't no time to kick it. Got a stack of flip for my foes. Dollar, 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 dollar. Please tell me you can hear me. Don't turn your back and don't neglect me. Just let me know if you need me. Dollar, 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 dollar. Let me watch out for my partners. Keep my money long, get my team strong. Let me run away